Hello, it's Doris with Aldi Books, and excuse my lighting, but I'm back to work and we're entering that time of year, and this is the 5th time that I've made this video and not the 5th time today. We're talking the 5th time on 5 separate occasions on 5 separate days. I don't know, I've just lost my filming edge. It's just, And if you hear any incessant meowing, that would be Biddy Boo. She's a little bit high-strung and demanding. She's a Siamese. I think that's all I need to say about that. Anyway, what I'm really excited to tell you is that I read 23 books in July. This is my 3rd July wrap-up, and 23 is pretty awesome. I'm impressed. But even more exciting, I have read thus far 2017, the lighting. Anyway, powering through. I have read 107 books. In the first 7 months of this year, I've hit triple digits. I've never in my life done that. I am quite certain. So thank you, BookTube. Thank you for all the amazing recommendations and all the camaraderie and the motivation. It is just, you guys are awesome, truly, so very awesome. Let me dive right in now. We're just gonna go with, we're gonna, the side of my face is all dark and in shadows, like a mysterious thriller or maybe a Daphne du Maurier novel. That's what we're going for here. Yeah. So my first book in this little wrap-up is a DNF, unfortunately. Faith and Furies by Lauren Groff. I knew going into this that this wasn't my thing, but I thought I'd give it a chance, and I did. The first chapter was gorgeous, truly. She's a beautiful writer, and I think this is a very interestingly set up novel, but the contemporary fiction thing, while sometimes I like that, it didn't work for me in this one. There's just an abundance of self-absorbed characters, and that is not my thing. So I gave it 70 pages and then I just gave up. But if you like literary fiction and contemporary relationships, you might give this a try. There are a lot of parties. I mean, the point when I DNF'd it was when I realized that I did the math and the guy was 30 and still living his life in a party. Yeah, so, but like I said, I do think that it has a really fascinating premise, and you might like it if it's your thing. It just wasn't my thing. I'm not saying it's a bad book, it's just wasn't my thing. What is my thing, and I've been gushing about these, so you know what they are before I even show them. Historical graphic novels are awesome sauce, and these are probably the best of the best. Yeah. So I've read the first 2. I've got one more, and I'm pretty happy that there's one left that I can enjoy. These are the civil rights movement, and the truly great thing about this is the combination of people that worked on them. The story is from John Lewis. He is a U.S. Senator and was one of the men who spoke at the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech. The first one begins when he's around maybe 8, and then the second one ends at that speech that I just mentioned. Lewis speaks there himself, so Lewis is the only one left alive that was there. But along with Lewis, you've got Aiden and Powell, the writer and illustrator, and the dynamic between these 3 men, the story, the writing, and the artwork are just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. I gushed about them quite a bit during my vlog for Booktubeathon, and prior to that too, and I'll be gushing about it again because, like I said, I've got number 3 left. But these are great if you can find them. They're in public libraries in the US right now for sure. Highly recommend. Definite 3 5-star reads, and just Great, great books. So like I said, that was Booktubeathon, the beginning. I had to count the March 2 as my read a book in a day because the day I attempted Silas Marner was just, wow, it was a mess. Yeah. And I also counted it for my hyped book because although they're not necessarily hyped on BookTube, they are hyped out in the real world, at least here in the States. All of the high school teachers and librarians especially know about them, and all the bookstores, they're prominently displayed. So yeah, good books. So then I didn't finish any other books during Booktubeathon until the last day, and then I cranked out several, and I had been working on them all week. I just finished them up on the Sunday. The first one of those was The Accusation by Bandy, and this is a short story collection that was smuggled out of North Korea. Now, the first couple of stories, I liked them, but they didn't really spark a lot with me. I felt distance from the characters, but the more you read, the more you realize that that is the intention of the author. I just noticed there's a lot of distance from the characters, between the characters themselves, and even distance from their own lives. And I think a lot of that is due to life under the regime, and he was trying to portray that, or I assume it's a man. Bandy is his pseudonym. But yeah, this was really good, and I really had a good vision for life under the regime. And I read The Orphan Master's Son last year, I think, and that was really a peek into the government. But this was more a peek into the lives of the everyday people. Not necessarily the really poverty-stricken people. I mean, they are poverty-stricken a lot of the time. But these are the ones that are working in the party. But yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And this was my cover pick because the first time I saw this, I wanted it. So yeah. Okay, and next was my Read a Novel Outside. And for that, I did A Sting in the Tail by Dave Wilson. This is all about bees. Imagine that. It is all about bees. So the author is a professor in the UK, natural history professor, and he studies bees for a living. He's a self-professed poor lecturer, but he's a great writer. I just found his writing absolutely delightful. It has a very anecdotal quality to it, and while he's writing about his studies and his trips abroad to study bees, they all are interspersed with time and people that he studied with and worked with along the way, and there's just good reading. And I personally adore bees, and I'm very much into the natural world. But, you know, if you're not into bees, or at least the natural world, this might not be for you, because it is indeed all about bees. That's it. Okay, after that, I finished, this is all on Sunday. The last one I finished on Sunday was Negroland by Margo Jefferson. This is a memoir set, I would say, maybe from the 50s up through the 60s. She grew up during the Civil Rights Movement, but she grew up as a member of the wealthy black elite in Chicago. So I think she just does a really good job of walking the line between, yes, racism affected me, and describing that, but also knowing that she was in many ways buffered from it. I think she did a really good job of talking about that. And I was very interested in how she wrote this. Now, the first chapter may be off-putting because it's very dry and just like a history text. But then after that, it does get into the memoir writing. But she still, during her memoir, just peppers it with different moments from history, and also she sticks in a lot of pop culture with actors and musicians, and even prominent literature of the time. So I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. Just a solid, interesting read for me, this one was. This was actually for Booktubeathon. It was the person diverse from yourself. And I mentioned this in my TBR, but I grew up a poor white girl in the South, so this was very different for me and very fascinating. And then this one, The Kitchen God's Wife by Amy Tan. I love Amy Tan. Amy Tan is a Chinese American writer, and her stories are always set in contemporary times, but the bulk of the story is told through flashback. At least 50%, and usually closer to 70%, is told through flashbacks. And some stories, it's ancient Chinese history. This particular one was set around World War II, before and after. I just really enjoy it. Her works are very entertaining and informational, and they're usually very much set in the family and how the family is affected by the history that surrounds them. Yeah. So good job, Amy. And I may have finished all of my Booktubeathon selections. I only finished 5, but I couldn't quit listening to this one on audio, so oh well. And then the last one that I finished in July was Jam on the Vine by LaShonda Catrice Barnett. This one was a buddy read with Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings, and she is so insightful, just very brilliant in understanding the structure and motivation, and yeah, so I had the most fun talking to her about this book. Now, we didn't totally agree. I mean, everything she said, I was like, yeah, wow, so true, definitely. But the difference being, and this is something that Mel from Mel's Bookland Adventures has brought up before, not everybody comes to the same book with the same needs and desires and personality. So I love tearing a book apart and understanding the structure. I mean, the teacher nerd in me just thrills to that. But I just read recreationally, straight up. So this book for me was just an interesting study in history. I loved the way she dipped into more obscure storylines, like the Spanish-American War and some lynchings in Omaha, Nebraska in the early 1900s, things like that, meatpacking industry. She just sprinkles it all in, and I absorb history better in a story like that, so I really like that. And I liked a lot of the relationships. The relationship between the mother and the daughter Ivo, and between her husband Ennis, and the relationship of Ivo and one of her teachers, Mrs. Durden, who she develops a lasting relationship with. They're in love, and they just are, it's really beautiful to read. Now, there were weird parts. Mercedes mentioned the part about the clarinet and going to Paris, and those were definitely what moments. The Paris part was kind of weird, but overall I enjoyed it. I got the relationship parts and the historical parts really made it work for me. So yeah, that's what I got, and this is what I'm going with, and I don't even know what to say. I hope this was tolerable this time, because I'm not even going to watch it. I'm not going to let myself watch it. I'm just putting it out there. So thanks for watching if you watch it, and I will chat with you soon, because I've got a lot of videos I want to make, but this one's been clogging up the works. So I'll chat with you again soon. Bye.